Hello, everyone. This is Jennifer Steck. I'm with Artburst Studios. Artburst Studios is an online art platform started by artists for artists and supporting them in their journey to connect with the people who love our artists' work. We're so thrilled you're here tonight to join us for our Artburst Live featuring Julia Martin. Now, Julia has been with Artburst since, gosh, the very first show. I don't know, 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. It seems like a while. So she was one of our featured artists from the very, very beginning. And we've been really blessed to be able to follow her journey along the way and all of the different doors that have opened since that time. Julia isn't only an amazing artist, she's also a wonderful supporter and encourager of her fellow artists. And as an artist myself, I know how much that truly means to us. So I'll let Julia share more about her artistic journey. But I just want to say this. We absolutely love working with Julia. Her creativity and warmth shine through in everything she does, especially with the Artburst community. Now, I already own one of her pieces, but I'm certainly hoping to add many, many more. So, good evening, Julia.
Hi, it's such an honor to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
So, let's just go ahead and get started. Tell
Okay.
us about yourself and your creative journey.
My name is Julia Martin. I am a mixed media artist. I use mostly oil and cold wax with sewn elements, which is sounds a little funny, but a lot of times focused on a grid with smaller things inside of them. And the work is really honoring my own lineage, coming from a long line of women sewers, and also trying to do something new and interesting with that work as well. And I'm sure we'll get to talk more about it through this conversation, but I guess that's where I'll start. I have 3 kids and an amazing husband and 2 dogs. And yeah, I feel really lucky to get to do what I do. So.
How did your life lead to COVID?
Yeah, I think many artists have a meandering path in some way, but I think, one for sure. I always made things, always. And I always took every art elective that I could, even in elementary school. I was lucky to go to an elementary school that had choices and electives, and I always took every art thing that I ever could. And I loved going to art museums, or anything art related. But I also think I had this idea in my head that to be a good artist, you had to be very good at drawing things realistically. And that was never how I was able to express myself nor wanted to. I think I always was really drawn to more abstract expressions in the same way that I used to be a dancer, but I was a modern dancer rather than a ballet dancer. Like it just resonated with me more. But I didn't have a lot of exposure to abstract art as a young person or think about art as something that you could learn and get better at in the same way that you learn and get better at other things that you can study and work hard. I think it just felt like something you had to be amazing and you were blessed with this or you weren't. And so in college I took a lot of art classes, including sculpture. I loved sculpture and I learned how to weld and do all these things, but I was too practical to major in it because I felt like I needed to really be able to support myself. But I always did it on the side. And then I'm sure we'll talk about this more as the night unfolds. But, I was a midwife. I was really lucky to be a nurse midwife. I had amazing colleagues and it was an amazing job. And then some different things changed in my life, and it became obvious to me that it was a good time to make a change and pursue art full time. And so that's where I am now.
I think it's amazing how many artists experience a similar journey. When you start a new piece, where do your ideas come from?
Yeah. Well, I think the best way that I could answer that question is that my ideas come from some sort of fragment. I think for me, art, when I'm doing art, it feels like the most authentic expression of who I am. It feels like there's something inside of me that I'm chasing, that I'm trying to understand better, and I can never quite catch it ever, but I can get closest when I'm making art. And I think that's true for many artists, like that we're chasing something um ephemeral that's hard to pin down. So I think that sometimes I'm noodling a thought, sometimes I'm wanting to be brave to use colors that I haven't used before. Sometimes I'm trying to solve a problem or compose something in a different way, trying to get at that feeling. But I would say that I don't come in with a really linear idea. I have to start and then the work and I have conversation and then it evolves and evolves and evolves and then it goes through its phases. And then eventually, I think we all struggle with when we know that something is finished. But yeah, I think it starts with a fragment is the best soundbite that I could probably give about that.
Oh, that sounds great. Your work has a really distinctive style, and that's one of the things I love about it. How
Yeah.
did your style come about?
It's actually a really sweet and tender question. I mean, I think as a placeholder, I always was a person who made lists, who tracked things, who carried notes in her pockets like a talisman. And it would be very sweet to find one anew later, and or maybe find it after it went through the wash or in a winter coat, and whatever I had written down it would be very meaningful, almost like the world had presented it to me again, right in a moment when I needed it. I mean, I had that experience a lot, but um, I had one of my very best friends who got sick with brain cancer, and it was during COVID, and I was working at the hospital, and she was in Tennessee, and I couldn't be with her the way that I wanted to be. And so I started to write her these postcards. Like I made them from scratch, these postcards, and I would send them to her like sometimes every day as much as I could just to be with her. And she would put them around the room during this process of her illness. And it was so vulnerable. And this part of me that was very authentic came through in that process. And when she passed away, obviously that was devastating, but also I missed that correspondence and that connection that we had and also who I was in that process. And so I started to think about these daily practices, the way that we can get at the heart of the matter, and I think I also started to think about how um I always was stitching things together in unruly ways. And I also am someone who doesn't like to do things like anyone else. And I think I thought if I'm going to be an artist, I need to find my own way in this. I didn't want to do what someone else was doing. And I think just all of a sudden all these ideas started to come together for me and I started to carry these notes and these scraps and sew them together. And they were very beautiful to me. This thought of things that were discarded or scrappy or small. I always, if you take a walk with me, I'm going to be very present with you, but I'm also going to notice, oh my gosh, look at that thing on the ground and the way the light is, I just take in the world that way. And it just all started to come together for me. And then all of a sudden, I had this thing that I felt like was really distinctive that I was doing that meant so much to me. And then luckily seemed to really resonate and meant so much to other people as well. So it's a long story, but I think a very important one about how I came to this and why I do what I do and why it means so much to me.
I love that story, and it's almost, I mean, your friend lives on
Mhm.
even in every piece of the work you create.
Mhm.
I mean, what
Mhm.
a
Yeah.
powerful thing that is in a way, that she changed the world. One of many, I'm sure.
She
So
really did. Yes.
it's always a hard time to go through, isn't
Yeah.
it? You were there, for her in such a unique, amazing way.
Yeah.
So, now, when we talked about our conversation, you suggested a title of Gathering Fragments, The Art of Marking Time. What does that mean to you? And why is that something you wanted to share?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that we've already touched on in the conversation is I think um, that ideas come to me in fragments. And I find scraps beautiful both literally and metaphorically. I think there are these moments in our lives that really stick out to us. Sometimes we're looking to hold on to them, and sometimes we really need to let them go, but they are fragments nonetheless. And I think as humans, we are really time markers, whether it's by minute, by hour, by day, by calendar, by anniversary of something that was momentous in our lives, by our birthdays. Like we just do need to keep track or mark time. It's a way that we, I think, are very common with each other. It's a similarity we share. And, I think I have a show right now called Place Setting. And in that title, I was really thinking about how I came to be who I am today in this body, who and how we all do. And then I think my work in its grid-like forms is really thinking about both all of those moments and how they are both individually very potent and very beautiful or painful, and they can make us who we are. But then also they collectively make us who we are. And then I also, you can look at my work and you could see one person that's very unique and individual, and how that one person has to contribute to something larger than themselves. And that's a really important piece of being a human, that we contribute to something larger than who we are, I think, to make a difference,
Mhm.
make our time worthy here. So I think I thought a lot about, well, what is the common thread in my work? And I think it really does have to do with marking things in a way that will um, help me grow, but also hopefully someone else that will resonate with someone else as well. So I think I was just thinking about marking time a lot as we were coming up for this conversation. And I thought, well, what could I share? I think the process of having some sort of daily practice where you do that, you really get to know yourself. You really get to know your own hand in things. And you have to see yourself when you do that. Whether it's a diary or whether you're a person who writes down, even one time, I think there was a beautiful article in the New York Times about someone who had just written down what they ate for dinner every night. And that was a way to mark time. And then, on September 11th, they were a New York City dweller. It was just like, they had almost nothing, but they wrote something, because it was that day. And so I just think about that a lot, how the ways that people choose to mark time says something about who they are, and we learn something about each other that way. And I think it's very beautiful. And I think it brings us together. It's something that we have in common in a moment where maybe we sometimes feel like we don't have a lot in common with other people. I think that is something that we all have in common in some way, something that everyone can resonate with. So I think that's very beautiful.
It is beautiful, and now's the perfect time to have some things in common.
Some things in common. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what's your favorite part of your process? The beginning, the middle, the end?
Yeah. So I would say that I have to give some honor to all of those parts. Because I could say that at the beginning there's all this possibility, but it's a little bit daunting, right? And then I could totally throw the messy middle under the bus and be like, I hate it. But the messy middle is where I learn the most about myself, right? It's where I have to solve the problems. And it's also I was listening to a talk by an artist I love, and he was talking about how his paintings really had to go to the underside before they were finished. That was really important. And I resonated with me so much. And so the messy middle is, I think, a place where it's a little bit painful, but also informative. And then the end is um, satisfying to be able to see this collection all together, working together in a way that means something and that I can look at and step back at, and there's this reflective moment. And I think also my process is so good for me because I'm a mom and I'm on the go and I'm on driving, and sometimes I need to paint with a huge brush. I think sometimes we all do. We need to bulldoze a little bit, and I can go through this process of painting in a large way, and then I think more like me is to be very detailed, very focused, very thorough, and those little details and the way that I get to hold them and care for them and carry them with me, and I can work on them on the go, and I do, that is very intimate to me. And they're very detail oriented, and that is very special. So I think I am so lucky that I've created a process for myself that allows me to be all of the parts of myself. It's a real honor to get to do what I do in the way that I do it.
I guess I hadn't thought about it before now. But yeah, you have the big background where you're doing the big painting, and then you have the small pieces that you can carry with you anywhere and
Mhm.
work on anywhere. And
Mhm.
that speaking as somebody who does art, I can't do
Right.
that, but I find that interesting and touching at the same time. That you talked about the moments in time, that you can capture those moments wherever you happen to be.
I do. I have a senior. My mighty middle is a senior. She's like totally one of my sheroes. She's an amazing human being. And we went on a college tour, and I just had to work on my art. First of all, because I have to work on it to be myself. Like I feel crazy if I don't work on it. But on planes, there's pictures of me with sewing needles in my mouth. Like, I mean, talk about like something that would make you nervous. Or I just would stuff these things, these little drawings in all of my pockets. And then I got to come home from that trip and I emptied. I mean, they were really down in my jean jacket, and I'm a blazer wearer if you know me well. And so, I always have some sort of pocket. And when I pulled them all out, it was like this total delight of marking time in that way, and to get to then see what I had done that I didn't get to look at, like it was on an easel. Like it's very neat to get to pull something out. It was such a treat, and that I got to share that with her. I mean, that was really, really cool. So,
When I look at your larger pieces, they make a statement and tell a story from a distance. And then when I go in close, I recognize that it's not one work of art, but it's many works of art that come together. How many of, I'm not sure what to call them, your scraps that you
yes.
put together? You use the word
Conglomerations.
scraps.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so how many of those are in like one of your larger pieces?
I mean, a really big piece probably has like 96 of them in it, or 100. I think maybe the biggest piece I ever did had like 120 something in it. That was, and I will tell you, those pieces are hard on my back because you have to reach really far to sew them into the middle of the thing. But I will say that I've always been a woman who loved to do the hardest thing first. Like I like to get the hardest thing over with first. So when I lay everything out, I lay it all out and I think about it, and I really think about the palette and the movement, and how they're in relationship to one another. And then I have to gently take them off in order and set them. And I'll have these trays all around me with like little groups of them. And then I go to the very middle first and I sew it in onto the grid. And then I can, and then I always leave the perimeter for last. And it's so satisfying because then it's kind of like, just easier.
They're
Yeah.
working inside out.
Yeah, inside out, which is really how I like to work, metaphorically as well.
Oh, true, true.
Yeah.
So I think they make a beautiful statement from a distance, but I'd really encourage people to go in and look at the details because individually, they're all in one piece, but individually, each one tells its own story, which adds to the whole book, if you will. This is just a chapter that leads to the completion in the whole book. So bravo.
That's so kind of you to say, and I mean, it means the world to me because when I thought about like, well, what kind of art do I want to make? I wanted to make something that would draw you in from across the room, that would make a statement across the room, but that really required your attention and and some level of intimacy. And I really try and seek. I'm seeking to create work that rewards attention. There is no greater gift that we can give someone than our attention, I think. It's our deep attention. And I want that from the interaction between the viewer and the piece. I want the piece to keep giving back over time. I don't want it to be something that can be taken in immediately and discarded. I want it to be in conversation with the person who owns it forever and for there always to be new delights to discover. And for some small thing to speak to you in a way that it might not have another time that you saw it. And so I think it just means the world to me that you said that. And it's also what I'm really trying to do. I'm not certainly not always successful, but it is what I am aiming for.
It clearly comes through to me. And then I think the other beauty of it is that the shadows, so the lighting in the room,
Yes.
the fact that these are sewn on or attached to the background creates almost a bit of a 3D effect.
Three-dimensional.
And even as the sun goes through a room or a light hits the room, it looks different.
That's again so kind. And I do think that is one of the challenges that I have is that even though I do photograph all of my work professionally and my photographer is amazing, shout out to Brian Burloff, but it's really hard. I think that's one of the things that's hard because a lot of people encounter work for the first time online. I want that to be true. It makes us connected. It makes us able to see what is happening in the art world right now, immediately. There's an immediacy to the fact that we can see things, and it's so important. And I think it can be hard for me to figure out how to show it and if someone is just going quickly to really see what's going on. So I deeply appreciate opportunities like this or the way that Artburst lets me show a detail or scroll in, and that people hopefully know to do that because I think yes, you can see the work in a much different way when you get close to it and when you see it in person for sure.
Yeah. Well, and I think for us, not everybody can attend one of your shows. I mean,
Yeah.
they just don't live close or
Right.
whatever. And it's really important to us that your voice gets heard in a much wider space than sometimes attending an in-person show can allow. So we're always thrilled to have you join us, always.
It's really, I think, such a gift that Artburst is giving to help spread art in that way. It's really amazing, and I'm so grateful that you do what you do, and
Oh,
that you invited me to be a part of it.
we
Yeah.
have a lot of fun along the way. It's a lot of work,
Yes.
but we also have a lot of fun, and it's truly an honor. So, has a collector ever shared a story that surprised or moved you about how your work impacted them?
Yes, many times. But I will say that one of the most meaningful to me was this summer. I had someone who I had a conversation with briefly in my booth. Um, and there was a piece called Quiet Conversations. Um, and, that weekend was very busy. And then she wrote me afterwards and said, I want you to know I have a son who passed away, and um, I don't carry notes in my pocket every day, but I'm going to start doing that so that I can continue my conversation with him. And I think one, it meant the world to me that someone took the time to write me and tell me what the work had elicited in them or meant to them. I mean, I just don't know if people know how much those conversations mean to us when we're making work. They mean the world. And so there have been a couple of conversations like that that have just moved me so deeply. And the gratitude that I feel that someone took the time to tell me that, I just those are the reasons that we do what we do. So yeah.
Oh my goodness. And so you can remember that in those times where you're trying to attach the middle piece and work
Yes.
your way work your way out. But that it is special. It's a gift that they give back to you in sharing those things. And it helps us to continue doing what we do.
Yeah, it really is fodder for the work, huh? Like when we get those conversations or those moments with people, I think it really is like kindling. Yeah.
Oh, kindling, that's such a good way to put it. So let's get back to kind of the day to day. What does a regular day in the studio look like to you?
Yeah. Uh, well, I could tell you my very polished, like what it should look like or what it actually does. Like, are we talking about like a day, like an ideal day or the reality? Like, I think that I am an early morning person and very bad at staying up late. I have a beautiful extended family who's very good at staying up late, and I am like not good at it. So if you need someone to do something for you really early in the morning, like I'm your woman. If you are needing something very late at night, I will make it happen, but I might not be as effective. And so I would say that usually, and it depends on what deadlines I've got coming up, if I'm in more of a ideas phase or if I'm in a real push. Lately, I just feel like I'm in a push a lot. So I'm usually up in the morning, and that's a time where I'm um, starting the day with writing, drawing, and sewing. I have some examples of the types of things. Like this is definitely some sort of note that I made, put in my pocket, and then it accidentally went through the wash. But it's very beautiful because of that. That's going to turn into something interesting. This is, I have a dear friend who's a potter, and she shoved a bunch of paper into the box that she sent me with all this like dust from her pottery as filler for the packaging, and it has this word on it. And so that's like a great example. This is an example of how I draw and sew. And then I love batting because I think batting is like the innards or the underneath side of things. And so it's very symbolic for me. And so a lot of times I'll be working on a drawing or sewing and I'll carry it with me in my pocket and I'll add thoughts throughout the day. Uh, Here's a good example of something that'll be in my pocket. And then those things, I'll paint papers and those things all get added together. I think I've not used this word until tonight, but conglomeration is really what's coming to me about what I'm doing. And so I am making those things all the time and just figuring out where they're going to be. So I'll usually have some time in the morning like that. And then, if I'm in a painting phase where I need to get backgrounds working so that they're drying, because my backgrounds, even though they're subtle, they have a lot of layers on them and they're very intentional. And there's layers and scraping and reduction and addition. And so I have to get layers down so that I can let that dry enough so that it's malleable in the right way, like the Goldilocks moment, like not to, the right consistency that I need it to be so that I don't smear it too much or there's so much intention and thought that goes into that and so much time that I've had to spend to get to know my materials in those ways. And so if I'm in a painting phase, it's like that. If I'm in a sewing phase, then that's kind of fun because that's when I can catch up on some of my shows that I haven't seen in a while. Like if I've got it all laid out, that's when I could pour a glass of wine and kind of just stay up. And I used to be a nurse midwife, which was an incredible honor and night shift. And I just never sometimes I stay up really late finishing pieces, but it's a very different thing to stay up late uh with your glass of wine than it is to like, be handling an emergency. So I never don't tip my hat to those colleagues that are still doing that when I'm up late at night because I know what it's like to be up late at night doing a very different thing. And so I don't mind being up late because I'm doing this thing that is so, not that it wasn't meaningful to do that job, it was incredibly meaningful. It was just also harder to do tired. Yeah.
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 Well, and as you're pulling those scraps and things, one thing I've seen in your work quite a bit is words.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
how did those play a role in what you do?
Yeah. I write a lot because I think through writing, and this is something that really makes me a little bit sad about AI because I think writing ourselves and requiring ourselves to write, I do not consider myself a very excellent writer. I value beautiful writing so much. And I just think though that we get to know ourselves through writing and the practice of writing. And so I do write. And when I let myself write without all those preconceived notions of what's good and what's not, the best parts of me come out. And I think in some of my work that's less paper driven and more quilt like driven, something I'm really trying to do is take this lineage of the women in my life who made these postage stamp quilts and then I taught myself how to do that. I was the oldest woman in my family, in my immediate family at age 25. All my great grandmother, my grandmother, my mother had all passed away when I was pretty young. And I think I felt like this was a way to really connect to like repeat that process of sewing and um, I really like to make those quilted squares and then sew them together and then turn them inside out or turn them to the underneath side and then re-sew them so that the edges and the seams and the undersides are showing. And then I like to take phrases of my writing and sew them into that because it feels like this way to honor that lineage, but then also to say, like, women's work. And listen, there are amazing, all sorts of people quilt, and I'm not at all suggesting that only women quilt, but traditionally, there were all these, very traditionally female tasks that were considered craft and they weren't considered fine art. And I think that's really changing, but I think that there's a lot of unseen effort in those daily activities. And I think all of my work is about really being like there is effort and so this it's about lineage and making something new and showing unseen effort and showing that work in a new way that's very beautiful that I'm trying to do in addition to some of the other themes we talked about earlier. So yeah.
Yeah, I think I know some of your smaller pieces sometimes. And it's something about it all coming together and with a word that captures you when you look at those. I
Mm.
think it's interesting that there's such a large variety and such a different way that people can enjoy your work.
Thanks, Jennifer. I do have certain words that, you know, that tend to recur for me, words like scaffolding or tether or, I mean, I have lots of words that I love, but that tend to make they're like recurring characters, I guess, in my work.
I love words too. There's
Yeah.
something about a word that can capture you in a different way, than maybe somebody was originally thinking when they put it down. So I love you did a collection of lists, which was fantastic. And I wish I would have grabbed one along the way.
Yeah.
Um, so
I did, as part of the morning practice, I did a series called The Daily List, and they were list-like, but they started out by me taking these scraps and having a word and a scrap, and they related to me in some way. And sometimes they were very funny, and sometimes they were sad, and I didn't think that anyone would get them. And it was so powerful to me that people loved those because it made me feel hope. Like, things don't have to be so on the nose. People really are, I think, looking for something that they see themselves in that isn't fully explained. And that was a really beautiful moment in my art career to see that. people loved those. Yeah, they were neat.
They
I'm
were,
always figuring out the next thing like that. Yeah.
yes, yes. I mean, they were poetry. They were poetry in their own right. What are your biggest challenges and how do you push through those?
Yeah. I think that so sometimes, like, I'm always wanting to figure out how to push this grid in a new and different way that shows more vulnerability or my hand. So I've been experimenting with that some. I think also I have a series of work that takes some of these sewn conglomerations or inside out drawings or pieces of fabric, and it's they have irregular edges and it's almost like a quilt. Well, here's I actually have like an example would be something like this that has like a lot of sewn elements, but is not it's they are really challenging compositionally because there's all these colors and textures and uh, it can be really hard to solve. I love that challenge. Like I want my brain to be working hard. I'm also a scientist and I want that challenge, but sometimes it's discouraging when I can't make it work and I want to. And then I would say imposter syndrome. I think all artists feel that some. I feel that all the time. I think I have such high standards for myself. And as soon as I meet my next goal, I'm kind of like, feeling like I need to meet the next one. And that can be daunting to have those feelings accompanying you when you're trying to break loose because it's in the process of breaking loose that you are really going to create the most majestic work, right? The most authentic work, but it can be daunting to be me in my head. I think the people who are closest to me see and know that and are very loving to me in those moments.
When you've finished a piece, when you've met one of the goals, do you take any time to celebrate that, or is the next goal always right here?
Well, I'm really lucky that well, my very best friend is also an artist, and she is really good at reminding me to pause and celebrate. And I feel very seen by her when she reminds me of that. I don't think it's my strength. I think that I feel like I came here to do something big and none of us knows how much time we have and I think and I mean this not in a sad way, but I have just lost a lot of people that I love early. And so I think I feel this momentum, like I'm really trying to do something. And so I do think sometimes I have this little motor and it can be hard to stop. But I also think I have really amazing people in my life who help me pause and celebrate. And so it's a good reminder. It's an important reminder. I wouldn't say that I'm excellent at that. Maybe I'll get better at it.
Well, sometimes the greatest joy comes in the working.
Yeah, I mean, I love my work so much. I love what I do. I want to get back to it when I'm not in it.
So, who or what has influenced your creative voice the most?
Well, I read a ton. I mean, I love music. I love poetry. I love dance. Like I love seeing anyone do something. I think probably all of us have heard that phrase like whatever you are, be a good one. I love a good one. And if you are a good one, I will study you and I will learn from you. But so I have so many teachers that wouldn't consider themselves artists, but are to me because they're excellent at what they do. Um, but I will say I have a teacher, Sarah Post, who I think is a brilliant artist, and she runs classes online where just a group of people come together. We show our work every week, and we talk about it, and there's something very vulnerable and intimate about it, and she is never prescriptive, and I feel like she really allowed me, she sort of encouraged me to do what I wanted to do. And that's this stuff, like these little nests, you know? And I think before that, if you didn't go to art school, maybe you don't know that you're allowed to do that and it can be art. And I think there was something about working with Sarah and learning from Sarah that really helped me be like, I get to really do what I do. And that really broke something open inside of me in a really amazing way. And so I really am, I can't really say enough about her. She really, I think she really changed my life. And I have told her so. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing people that come in, especially at those precise
At
moments.
the right moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you need
So how do you balance everything?
it.
Like,
Well, okay. So one of the things that's really amazing is that I can work early in the morning. I can work late at night, which also means that if one of my children needs to go to the doctor or I can do that, you know. I think I can work bizarre hours, so that's helpful. I live in my house. I have an apartment where my mother and father-in-law live with me for part of the year. They're very helpful. I have really incredible friends, and also I'm just a really hard worker. Like I'm not going to sell myself short. Like I work really hard. I love to work hard. And so I just keep moving. And I think I love, like, a part of our family is we make a really beautiful dinner almost every night. That is my time to really be together. And so I still try to find those time for those things. I just keep my standards where they are, and then I just keep trying to meet them. And I think yeah, that's how I do it. I don't know.
I know it's hard, and I don't have, and I don't have all of the things going on that you have in your life. So I admire that you keep focused and that you keep pushing forward. So, any advice you would give to emerging artists that are still finding their voice?
Yeah. I mean, I think I would say um, to have some sort of way that you connect with what you're trying to do every day if you can. I think, in the repetition and intensity, you do find yourself. And so I would say that having some form of drawing practice, it does not have to be a realistic drawing practice, but some way of drawing or writing or I mean, I think many people have spoken to this, like the artist way, just finding some way to connect in a daily way. And then I would say, find the thing that you like you okay, there's this balance. Like you can't make art for other people, but you hope that the art that you do make resonates with other people. But if you make the art because you hope someone else will like it, it will kill it faster than anything else. You have to make what you were made to make. You have to chase that thing that I was talking about that can't be caught, and you have to keep be relentless in chasing it. And I think that then and it took me years to find this, and it won't be what I'm doing you know in the future, but there will be a through line. And I think it's really important to have faith in what you love. And if you love it and that's what gives you juice, then you got to go towards it. You know, and you have to be willing to murder your darlings. You can't get so attached to something that it is, that whole thing. But yeah, I think I would say try to have a daily practice where you are vulnerable with yourself. And then I would say you need to find other artists to talk to.
Ah,
You need to find other artists to be around and to bounce things off of and to talk. And maybe you live in a place where that is someone else who's like whoever you are, be a good one, but you talk about that essence together to push yourself forward. I think those would be things that I would say.
Yeah. I think that the artist community can be some of the most supportive and loving people that will really help you, especially during an imposter syndrome or the different things,
Yes.
doubts that crop into our heads at the strangest moments sometimes. Just, because they believe in us and the people who love us, who surround us believe in us, and that helps us believe in ourselves. So
That's
that's
right. Yeah,
important.
that's right.
So, Julia, what's next for you? What creative goals, upcoming projects? How is your calendar filling these days?
Well, so I have a show right now that I'm very proud of that I'm sharing with two other artists, Mary Lynn Baird and Victoria Eubanks. Jennifer came to see me at my show, which was so lovely. And it runs through the end of October in Denver at In Collective Gallery. So if you're and In Collective also has an online, like you can see the work online as well. So I'm very proud of that show. And so that's exciting. And then right on the heels of that is our Artburst show, which I'm so excited about. And so that is really great because it's an opportunity for anyone, to be able to see the work and purchase work. So those are two things that are immediate for me that I'm really excited about. And then, the holiday season is a time where I really focus on small work for people, and that's a big push. I think we as artists talk about that a lot. It's a big push, but it's so important to me to have work that's small and affordable for people. So I'm dreaming up those things, and I've got some applications that I'm going to submit to some shows that are big goals for me. And so I'm just going to keep, trying to do those things. That's kind of going to take me through the end of the year. And then who knows what 2026 will bring.
Yeah, I think a lot of amazing doors are going to open. Anything else you'd like to add and tell us about?
I think you I think you did such a good job. Like I feel like you really got to all these different facets of me in the questions that you asked, which is so loving, Jennifer. Really, really, really kind. I guess I would say I have a couple pieces here that are
Yeah.
going to be in the Artburst show that I'd love to show.
How could we forget that?
I know. So here's like an example of some work that's going to be smaller and intimate, and I think really lovely for the show. This has actually been a really sweet direction. These are small sewn drawings that I've been working on, and they're really inspired by a daily walk and the concept of like an external environment and an internal environment and things I'm encountering in thought and on my walks, and I'm trying to represent that in a piece. So they're very sweet. I'm excited about those. I love the way this is going off the edge.
Me too.
And then here's another one with some bigger squares. And I gotta say, this blue one is just, oh, chef's kiss to me. Like, I get so attached to these little drawings. This is really the way that I draw, these little pieces. So I'm excited to have some work that is, really intimate for the Artburst show. I'm excited about it. Yeah.
We are too. We are.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us tonight. And then let me tell everybody a little bit about what's coming up for Artburst. So, as Julia said, we have an amazing show, Connection, which is a perfect fit for what you do, I think. Um, and it opens November 6th and runs through the 8th of November. So the Artburst shows right now are lasting about 54 hours. So you want to make sure and get in and be ready to buy when the show opens. And we always suggest that you subscribe and that you create a free account in advance so that you're ready to go. We have 18 brilliant artists working in a variety of mediums. And we're really excited to have some fiber artists joining us, a group of those who many of them also work with some stitching. But again, everybody's work is very unique. So that will open online on artburst.com. And so we'll see you on November 6th. But if you're looking for art today, we have the boutique is live right now with Bobby Baugh and Pamela Beer, and they have amazing work as well. And you can just log on there. So Heidi says, thank you. Lovely way to end the day. Kathy says, I've enjoyed this, no questions, but I always love Julia's background information on her work. I also always enlarge her work that I get to see online so I can see the details. Love you, Julia. Thank you, Heidi and Kathy. So, Julia, I always love spending time with you. Thank you for being so open and vulnerable with the conversation here. The most important thing here is we have amazing artists with incredible voices, and Julia is one of them, and she deserves to be heard, and people really need to hear her. So don't forget to subscribe on her website, follow her on social media so you can check out what she has coming next. And if you come to Denver, for goodness sakes, at any point, get in touch with her and take a look and see if she has an event coming up, because you're going to want to take a look at the work in person as well if you happen to pop in and to meet this spectacular artist. So thank
Can
you, Julia.
can I say one more thing though? Just
Of course.
in honor of Jennifer, this was a big leap for me to leave healthcare and become a full-time artist. And Jennifer and Artburst was my first show as a full-time artist. And I think that you believed in me from the start, and I just can't thank you enough for the way you've seen me and what you're really trying to do and doing so beautifully to support artists in this really authentic and kind way. So I really can't thank you enough.
Oh, thank you, Julia. We love you.
Yeah. I
Uh,
love you too.
well, everyone, have a wonderful evening. Thank you again for joining us. And next month we will have another artist featured. And so if you enjoy these artist chats, keep an eye on our website, and we'll be making that announcement then. So have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you next time.